Alas, it's finally over. The world is now filled with communism, and we can all be one happy family. Wait, where's all the food at? Why is everyone starving? No, I'm just kidding. But we finally, actually, on something good though, not starvation, we finally have a victor in this game. What was it? What do I call this? A free for all or something? It's been that long, I forget what I titled it as. And obviously, I have not been able to play consistently as well. Life has been making me busy. How many rounds has gone by? I actually had to look up the last video I did, which was end of turn 11. It's probably been like at least 20 plus rounds. I have no fucking clue. I'm not even going to try to guess. It's been a very long, drawn out game. There was a major curveball that was thrown in. And if you don't remember, I think if I remember correctly from the last video, there's a whole bunch of boats, Russian boats, off of 89 there. I just sunk the American Pacific Navy there. So the Russians had complete naval dominance in the world. They had more Navy down here off of West Africa with a whole bunch of units ready to go and all that. They were trying to invade America at the time. But let's before I go into the tangent, well, what else were they doing over here? Oh, yeah, that's right. I think they were also trying to fully conquer, or they had fully just about conquered all of Eurasia or something like that. That part I'm not too certain. But just real quick, so that 4 represents going up the income track chart 4 times. So that's what, 80, 160, 240. That's over $250 just base right there that the Russians are getting, and not including their bonuses. So they're easily almost pushing 300. They would be pushing out almost 300 a turn now. But, I mean, it wouldn't matter at that point anyway. So let's go into this tangent about this solid curveball that was thrown. Because at the end of turn 11, it was pretty damn confident that the Russians were going to win this regardless. And, I mean, they did, but it took way longer than I expected. So it started over here with the Australians here. Obviously, they had Java. They had their capital, too, as well. And, well, there's, I think, like 2 or 3 rounds where, like, shortly after turn 11 or something like that, I forget when, because, again, I just stopped counting. They went, like, literally 5 times in a row. One round, they went 6 times in a row. Then someone else went, and then they went another 3 times in a row. So that ended up transferring to, they take Malaya, then they bypassed India, landed in the Middle East, came down here, landed all throughout Africa. As you could still see, Madagascar is actually still Australian occupied. I just never bothered to take it back. They came up, took Egypt, took all of northern Africa. They ended up taking Rome, Greece, northern Italy, and some of the Balkans. And they were actually able to drive all the way up, and one turn, they actually took Moscow. Now, the caveat with that is, after they taken Moscow, they actually tried once. The first time they failed. No, they tried 3 times. The first 2 times, they didn't get it. Third time, they finally got it. Then they were able to build one more time in Moscow, get some aircraft up there too. But after that, the Australians did not go at all for the rest of the game. So the Russians, they were able, so they had all their stuff over here. They brought everything back up to 110, landed up in Leningrad and all that. Obviously, their bombers from the Caribbean can make it over and attack Moscow in 2 turns. So getting aircraft wasn't an issue. So they just got a couple mechs, a tank, and a whole shit ton of bombers, and they took it back. And then the Russians, they were able to drive south, cleaning everything out. Mind you, the Australians made it as far west as like Belarus, Ukraine, and all that too. So they cleaned all that out. They came down, cleaned out the Middle East. At the same time with that, they started building some transports, small navy, and all that. Took some islands, and they were able to come down since they took some islands and all that. Landed in Queensland. That gave a space for the bombers to land from the Philippines, and then they took Sydney. So the issue was, yeah, I was spamming out all tanks, 15 tanks on the mainland and all that, and building battleships over here, but I didn't build any troops in Sydney, really. There's only like 2 infantry, and that was it. So taking Sydney was really easy. And when they did, they had like $250 in the bank. So the Russians, the turn after, almost had $500 in the bank. And I was like, okay, yeah, no, it's going to be a definitive Russian win at that point. Like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. So after that, they came through, able to finally clean out all the Australian troops off of Eurasia and all that. Ended up taking a whole bunch of more islands and all that. Now, I'll stop right there for a second. In the meanwhile, though, the Americans, they were just mainly just building up infantry and a whole bunch of ground troops and all that. At one point, they had, a stack of subs off the coast being convoy raided over here, but they didn't have anything convoy raiding them over there, so they're still able to build destroyers and all that. So they were able to clean up that mess. And at one point, they had like 6 carriers and a decent navy, actually. And I tried to kill the Russian navy over here, which did not work out. The Russians just had way too much. And then, obviously, you can see what was the outcome of that. But the majority of the time, the Americans were just trying to build up ground troops and all that. Because you see they had like 30 ground units already on the board at the end of like turn 11. So, and they were in Central America and all that. So Americans were not building a navy at that time. So they were behind the 8 ball and they never caught up. So that's all they were doing on the sideline the whole time when Russia was, what's the word to say? Rudely interrupted, I would say. So, but yeah, the Russians came back down. They cleaned out Eurasia and all that finally. And then we ended up coming up. We took Western U.S. and we were blessed to have our turns go enough so we could actually build units there and land aircraft there. So once that happened, it was game over at that point. And then literally like a couple turns later, the Americans were able to go a couple times, but they were barely making any money. And then we finally got our fleet down here after we rebuilt it, because Americans did try to come out and try to kill it, and they kind of got close, but kind of close is not enough. So we came down here. The bombers, we had like 35 bombers. We had like 25 jets. Americans, they had like 54 AA gun shots, and they only got 8 hits. So even if they did get like 20 hits with them, it wouldn't matter. Plus, I didn't put down Russia's build, but they bought like an extra 20 bombers and 4 more tanks on the west coast. So they could just go again and it won't matter. They built 12 bombers right here in Holland, Normandy, and London that can reach and land on the west coast. So it literally doesn't matter. But I'm just glad it's finally over. I can clean this off and do something else. So I'm going to just cut it there because that really was it. Yeah, Australia did a little escapade into Moscow. America was just building infantry and tried to challenge the Navy, and they got their shit pushed in. And Russia finally conquered the world, and now everyone's red. Have a nice day.